Hello, everybody. I'm here with a very special person that I only met once in my life. It was a week in a gathering, in a very beautiful gathering that Misha and MCE did in Croatia. And I spent time with him, and I feel that I have a lot to learn from him. So I took the opportunity and wanted to do this conversation. So say hello to Hugh O'Gorman.
Hello, everybody. It is wonderful to be here.
How are you?
Doing okay considering everything. It's a lot. The whole world is dealing with a lot right now, and it's an opportunity for all of us to dig a little deeper than we normally do. And so considering everything, we're doing well here. Thank you. Yeah.
So let's start with the first question, and this is
Sure.
basic information, really. Name, age, country, current job, and position.
Sure. Well, my name is Hugh O'Gorman. I am 55 years old, a proud member of the 1965 Club. I live in Los Angeles, California, though I'm originally from the East Coast. I've been out here about 20 years. And I am the head of acting and a professor at California State University, Long Beach, where I head their BA, BFA, and MFA programs. I'm also the co-executive director of the National Alliance of Acting Teachers, which is a collective of about 300 acting teachers. It started out just American, but we've now got about 5 countries, about 80 training programs, and it's an outgrowth of the Actors Center in New York City and the teacher development program there. So I help run that with Amy Hertzberg of the University of Arkansas. And I have my own studio here called the Praxis Acting Studio in Los Angeles. And then I teach when possible with Misha. I'm on the faculty there, the Michael Chekhov Association, as well as MCE, Michael Chekhov Europe. I can't wait to get back to Europe sometime. I'm married to a French woman, so like Europe, love it. And what else? What else do I do? Yeah, that's basically most of my teaching is in those arenas. Yeah. So.
Wow. This is a lot of stuff.
It is, but it's great, it's great sharing stuff that matters and it's a joy. So.
And do you still act?
I do, but it's rare when I do that. Though it's interesting with this pandemic, I think everybody's watching so much material right now. There's going to be a need for more material when we get done. So I was thinking, maybe now's a good time to get back in. I don't know. We'll see. I don't really miss it. I love teaching so much, but part of me does. Sure. Yeah. So.
I first saw you in the Misha DVDs, and I don't know if I told you, that was a huge impact on me. It's a brilliant, product. That it struck me, and this is the first time actually that I saw that I could see what this technique can do to actors. This is really the first time that I saw this. So.
And it's kind of prescient that Joanna had the vision to do that, and I think we shot them in 2005. I think they came out in 2006. And of course, they've been out for a while, but now with this pandemic, and they're available both at the Misha website, michaelchekhov.org, but also at Digital Theater Plus. And so many people now are writing and seeing them that never would have seen them before, which is,
and you can download it, right?
Yeah, and they're fantastic. And we use them. I use them with my students, even when we're in the room. I have them watch, when they're home, and then it's really a wonderful resource. Yeah, the master classes and the Michael Chekhov technique. Yeah.
So the next question is, tell me about your first memory of the art world that made an impact, like a theater performance or movie or music.
Yeah, this one's easy, actually. So I grew up my mother was a Broadway actress and an opera singer. She had trained at the Juilliard School in New York for opera. And my dad was a professor, and he taught at this university in Connecticut called Wesleyan. And I can't remember how old I was, but we went to a production of a Kathakali performance of Indian dance. And for some reason, my mother had gotten the front row tickets. And I was a young kid, and I don't know if you've seen Kathakali, but it's very vibrant and very active and very gestural with bells and masks. I was terrified. But for those 2 hours, it was a mixture of abject terror, but also fascination. Culturally, colors, sounds, everything coming at you as a kid. And it's funny because I was thinking about this, it made such an impact. To this day, I can hear the sounds of the bells. I can see the masks. I can feel how I felt, the sense memory of being in that theater, and the power of that, of being in the room with ritual, with gesture. But my wife and I, we made the same mistake, and we took our then 5-year-old. We have 2 daughters, and we took Marley's her name. At the time, she was about 5 or 6. So we took her to see the Blue Man Group in New York City. She was equally terrified. She came out of the theater like, "Oh my God!" What is the Blue Man? What is it? The Blue Man Group. Have you not seen them? Oh, they're wonderful.
No.
They actually were former Wesleyan students, and they started a kind of performance art group, and they kind of began in I want to say the late 80s, early 90s. And they paint themselves blue. You may have seen they have a show in Las Vegas, and it's very physical. They're silent, but they do all these physical gestures and acts, and it's quite provocative at times, and quite loud, and quite fun. But anyways, that's, that would be my first memory of it.
How old were you? Do you remember?
Gosh, I don't know, probably like 6, 7, something like that, Yeah. But I grew up in the theater. I was, you sent the questions ahead of time, and thinking about it, I was like, well, I grew up and my mother was an actress, so I have so many memories of just growing up in theaters and being in the theater, like literally as a kid, just in the atmosphere of a theater, right? So, but that one stood out.
Okay. And when and where did you learn the arts?
The arts in general, you mean?
I mean, maybe acting.
Well, that's, I guess because I grew up with a mother who was a performer, she was always coaching clients, mostly singing, but opera singers, out of our first apartment in New York and then house in Connecticut. So I grew up with people coming into the house and listening to these beautiful operatic sounds. The first show I ever did, I was pretty young. I was probably about 7 or 8. And there's a wonderful group still in Middletown, Connecticut called the Oddfellows Playhouse. So I'll give a shout out to the Oddfellows Playhouse. They're still there. And we did a show called Middletown Fantasia, which was a musical about our hometown. And I can't remember what part I played, probably a tree or a light post or something. But we all sang. And this group, they were Wesleyan students, and they Alida J and Nat Needle, and they wrote this beautiful musical, and we were kids, and it was a place we could go to be free and to be creative and to be imaginative, and work together. And I would say that group, the Oddfellows Playhouse, is where I learned first to really that acting. I mean, when you're a kid, you're not thinking it's an art form. You're thinking it's something fun to do. Mm-hmm. But impulsively, you end up going back there. So I would say that. And then, of course, later in life, drama school and training and studios and stuff. But
so yeah. What do you consider your main, professional program that you did, the main thing that gave you the best tools for acting?
Well, I would say certainly my graduate actor training program at the University of Washington in Seattle. I did their professional actor training program, the MFA in acting. And those 3 years of just pure dedication 24/7 to the craft of acting. I was there in the mid-'80s under the master teacher Jack Clay, with Judy Dickerson and Max Dixon other wonderful teachers, Kathy Madden, an Alexander Technique teacher who's still there, and Mark Jenkins, a member of the Actors Studio. They were just incredible teachers. And to be immersed, I think the immersion of graduate school is one of the values of that kind of training is you really don't have time to do anything else. So you have to face yourself, and you have to face your habits, and you have to face, your ability, but you also get the time to, as Chekhov writes, repetition is the growing power, right? So to repeat and to try and to fail and to get up and fail again and fail better, as Beckett says. So that would be but I'm a total geek of actor training. So like, I can't get enough of it. So like, I've studied with so many people, but that would be the main training. Yeah. So
you said something that, caught my interest. You said that you learned their Alexander technique. Do you still do something with it? I mean, do you still do it?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I don't think I can move in my body without doing something with it. Because at first I grew up an athlete, so parallel to my theatrical life, I was a soccer player, so I was always in touch with my body. And in fact, that's one of the reasons the Michael Chekhov technique resonated with me so much, is it was this psychophysical approach. And when I discovered it, I was like, oh, this is part of the acting world. This is fantastic. I didn't know this. But yeah, Alexander technique, sure, it's a way to, move through life. And I always say this to Kathy Madden, my teacher, when I see her, I thank you so much for the gift you gave us, because even now talking with you, I'm using it, because we're reminding each other how we move, and it's a constant up and forward and moving, and it's related to your breath and how you access yourself. So it's not a conscious thing, right? It's that thing about we learn techniques so we can forget it. And so it's in the body. But then there's also something I use with my students a lot, which is the process of notice, stop, redirect. And that from the Alexander technique is applicable to everything. When you're interfering with yourself, to just notice, oh, I'm interfering with myself, stop, breathe, redirect. So, yeah.
This is amazing. I just did a few years ago, a lot of years ago, I did a course, 1-year course about the Alexander technique meeting Shakespeare, something like this.
Oh, great. That sounds great. I wanted to do that.
That's the first time that I learned about the Alexander technique, and it's just blew my mind, and I still go to practice it sometimes. But in real life, it's very difficult to take this and live with it. But I always try to keep it in mind.
Yeah.
So, okay. So moving on. What was your first part?
Professional part.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to work at the Hangar Theater in Ithaca, New York. I had gone to Cornell as an undergrad university in upstate New York, and there's a theater that's been there for years. It's an old plane hangar, actually. It was part of the old Ithaca airport, and there's been a wonderful theater there for many, many years. And one summer I got an internship there. I think it was the summer after I graduated. And it's one of those experiences that you wish all young people can have, because you're in this amazing regional theater, summer stock. You're doing lots of parts. You're being thrown. You have to, carry the furniture in one show and then play a lead in the next. And they had an internship program where we were doing experimental theater. And then after graduate school, I went back to that theater and did the play Burn This by Lanford Wilson. I played the part of Burton. It wasn't the first professional job I'd done, but it was great to go back after school and get a professional job and begin working. And I think I got my equity card doing a George Etheridge play called The Man of Mode at the Oslo Theater in Florida in 1991, I think that was, or 90, I can't remember. So that was when I got my equity card, which is the union here in the United States, of course. So that was fun. You don't get to do a lot of those plays, so it was fun to do that.
So you enjoyed it.
I did. When you're that age, you're just like happy to be working, period, and to be with other actors, and exercising what you learned in your school. So yeah.
Okay. And when was the first time that you came across the Chekhov technique? And maybe what did you think about it at first?
Right. So this is very clear in my mind. It's funny how life hands you these gifts, but you have to like kind of listen for them. And if you're not listening, you miss them. And it was 1995, and I had just started work on a TV show, and we had just done. We had finished filming an episode, and I remember it was a stormy winter night in New York City, and my agent called and said it was Friday at like 5. Can you go to an audition now at the Jewish Repertory Theater? It's off-Broadway company in New York City. And I said, it's Friday at 5 and it's snowing and I just got done working. And I hung up because I'd said no. And then something inside of me said, call your agent. It's when we had beepers, so I went and called, had to find the payphone and go put the money in. And I called my agent back and I said, sure, I'll go. And I went and I got the part, and it was in a play called The Yiddish Trojan Women. And we did it at the New York Jewish Repertory Theater in 1995, in 95 and 96. And that's when I met Joanna Merlin. She was in that production. And I had known her, of course, as a casting director. I didn't know her as an actor at the time. But she was in that production. And one afternoon, we were sitting backstage between a matinee and an evening performance, and we were all talking about our training and who we'd studied with. And she started talking about Michael Chekhov. And very honestly, I didn't really know who she was talking about. At first, I thought she was talking about Anton Chekhov. I'm like, oh, that's, and just didn't know, right? So that's when I first learned about him, listening to Joanna talk about being a student of his, and then, but it wasn't for a couple of years after that, because I was acting, and then I started teaching. And when I started to dabble in teaching, I went to a workshop at NYU that I don't even know if Misha, it was one of Misha's first, and I walked into this weekend workshop, and Ted was my first teacher, and we just started throwing balls around, and I was like, oh, wow, as a former athlete, I was like, this is great. What is this? And then I remember very distinctly, he said, now we're going to put slabs of meat in our hands. And I realized now he was working on imaginary body, but I had no idea. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but this is a lot of fun. So, I mean, it's a long story. That's the short version. But yeah, it was being in the production with Joanna of that show, and then just kind of following her ever since. So,
do you remember what she was saying about Chekhov when she first talked to you about it?
I do. I remember her very distinctly talking about how much he loved actors. And that has stayed with me. Every time I walk in the classroom, I have to remember to lead with kindness and compassion and love these people that are in the room. And I got that feeling, because I had some great teachers, but they weren't all the nicest or kindest, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully those days are behind us, but more and more. But I remember that. I remember her talking about his ability to transform himself. And that was something I wanted to work on as an actor. I felt like I'd gotten the fundamentals down. I had an agent. I was working. I was getting jobs. But I was like, this next step of transformation, I'm kind of, I want to work on that. And I remember her talking very much about that. So, yeah, it was very clear. Yeah.
Okay. And who is the most influential teacher or teachers that taught you the technique?
Right. Well, this is both an easy question and a hard question. The easy answer is Joanna. She's how I access the work. She's been my mentor. I think about, and I'll tell you very specifically why I was thinking about this before you called. I realize now more and more having taught myself now almost 20 years, that really the most important thing in the room is who we are in the room and how we are with the students in the room. And Joanna, I realize more and more the older I get, she just lives and models presence, kindness, compassion, ease, form, wholeness, and obviously on so many levels, beauty. And there's a lot of data that shows that's like around 60 to 70% of what students retain from any classroom and any subject matter is who the professor is, how she delivers the material, how he conveys their passion for the work and their raison d'etre to the students. So Joanna's modeling of the work to me leads and is really inspiring for me, both as an actor and a teacher. But, you know, listen, the blessing of Misha and MCE is there's so many amazing teachers. I mean,
Right.
okay, let's just talk about Ted and Fern for a moment, can we? How amazing are they, right? And they live that work. And what I love about the two of them too is the sparkle in their eyes, very specifically, the joy of sharing the work with others. And that's something I try to keep in my own heart, you know. And then we can talk about Len and the precision and clarity with which he delivers the work. And David Zinder, for me, coming to the work as a former Division I athlete, I found the rigor of David's work, his demanding of attention and imagination and precision. I love that kind of form in the work. And I love his image work, and I use it a lot with our students at Long Beach, that physical work. But I would be remiss if I did not mention Mala Powers. And I was blessed enough to study with Mala out here in her classes in LA. And God rest her soul. But from Mala, those who met Mala and worked with her, she embodied radiating. I can feel her presence even now. She just radiated very specifically love, kindness, and joy. And I really learned both as an actor and as a teacher from her that every class has to be filled with joy. And that if I'm going to do this, I need to be filled with joy as an actor as well. And Mala just embodied that. So yeah, I mean, you know, and then there's so many others, but yeah, those are the.
Well, you were lucky to, you know, to have as teachers those people. I mean, this is amazing.
They are amazing.
Yeah.
It's the joy of what we do. You know, it's funny because I was thinking in preparation for this, I'm not a big fan of the word teacher. And I know we need to call things, and it's what I like to call the label libel. Like as soon as you call something a specific name, it loses its potency. But my wife and I raised our children in Montessori schools.
Mm-hmm.
And they're Montessori kids. And Maria Montessori, in a Montessori school, they don't use the word teacher, they use the word facilitator.
Okay.
And it may seem like splitting hairs, but really deep down, that's what I feel all these teachers have done for all of us. If they facilitated access to ourselves via this technique, coupled with their own experiences of the technique. And that idea of facilitating rather than teaching, rather than sage on a stage, I'm going to tell you some stuff that I know and you're going to write it down and you repeat it back, you know, is I believe in the ethos of Michael Chekhov was really this idea of releasing a creative individuality. And I think we do that through facilitating rather than teaching. That being said, you have to know your shit in the room, as it were, right? You have to like, I know what I'm doing and let's go, you know, let's head in this direction.
Sure. Yeah.
Hey, this is great.
No, I know what you mean. And maybe our connotations with the word teacher is also maybe bugging us. But,
well, it's also a power structure, isn't it? It's when you walk into the room, and I one of the things I think as an actor, especially as a male actor, I need to be in touch with my feminine side, right? And that energy. And I feel a lot of the Chekhov technique allows me to access that part of myself. And I feel that that's a more kind of less patriarchal, more kind of egalitarian approach to being in the room together and kind of moving consciousness forward as a collective. And that's where I think the greatest discoveries have, because people are the freest, because they don't feel there's a power structure in the room. And I'm a 6'5", 250-pound guy. Like, I have to like try and play against that as a teacher. So yeah, but it's interesting, this word teacher, right? What does it actually mean? But, yeah.
So an influential sentence that you heard from one of your facilitators.
You know, this is one of those questions, Ophir, I just got to say. It's impossible to, I mean, there's so many.
You can do two.
Well, you know, I think they're all versions of what Michael Chekhov said. They've been said by our teachers, right? I actually, I'm gonna share the one I like the most, which just makes me smile, which is: the gesture is the meat, but the sustaining is the gravy.
Oh, wow.
And the fact that the word gravy is in that sentence makes me, I love gravy, and it's
Who said that?
Chekhov. It's when you make the gesture, right? That's the meat of the meal, making the gesture.
Where is it written?
But oh, that's a good question. See, I don't know. This is where we get in trouble with recordings. I don't. I think it's written somewhere.
Now you see what you're doing. Now I'm going to, you know.
Yeah. We'll go do our research.
Maybe.
Yeah, it might. If it's not in To the Actor, it might be in Lessons for the Professional Actor. But anyways, that's one of my favorites. You know, I think there's basic ones like repetition is the growing power. I mean, just on a basic training level, as someone that runs multiple training programs, I need to build in repetition to the experience of the students so they're able to articulate and re-articulate the work. I'll tell you one that's always stayed with me is, and I can't remember, maybe Joanna said this first, and I think it's Chekhov said it, but I think Joanna, I heard it first from Joanna, is I remember her saying in a reassuring way, because it's so much the way she teaches, was, you can always make a gesture and it will always work on you. And in a way I just went, oh, right, it's always there for me. I can always make a gesture and it will always create a sensation in my body. If I add a quality to it, that'll change it. So, you know, anyways, we could do a whole series just on these, but yeah.
It really takes the pressure off.
It does.
Yeah. Okay, so why, in your opinion, it is important to teach and spread the Chekhov technique?
I think at the end of the day, our purpose as facilitators of any technique is to empower the creative individuality of that other human being we're in the room with. And I have found that the Chekhov technique is able to reach so many people really easily by releasing their intuitive side, so that they have their own relationship to ownership of what acting is. Because acting doesn't exist. Like, I have my cup here of coffee. We can look in here, or at least I can look in here, and there's coffee in here. We can say, this is coffee, it exists. Where is acting? Like, where is it? It doesn't exist except in all of us individually. And I believe that at the end of the day, at least for me, when I'm in the room, either as an actor myself or with other actors, is it's about that creative individuality and allowing young people or actors of any age, for that matter, to discover their own ownership over what acting means to them. And Chekhov does that, you know, in spades. It's a healthy approach too, at a very simple level. It's about the imagination, the relationship with the body. I believe more and more as the world becomes more and more sedentary, spending more and more time on screens, that we need to be up and moving, and we need to be moving with imagery. And that relationship of incorporating imagery into the body is de rigueur and essential to any actor anywhere. So, yeah.
And what are the advantages, if we explore it more, what are the advantages of the Chekhov technique, in your opinion, compared to other methods? And I know that you're working with, you said it already, a lot of methods.
Yeah, I do. It's interesting because, this whole idea of the name of a teacher, like you're a Chekhov teacher. Yes, I use the Chekhov technique as an actor and I teach the technique. But at the end of the day, you have a human being in front of you and you need to help that human being. And so you're going to draw from whatever you have. I will say in particular regard to the Chekhov technique, though, I will say the one word that pops to mind immediately is freedom. It gives a freedom to the actor to trust their own intuition and their own innate God-given ability. And even, he writes a lot about how technique is fluid and it's adaptable and you should change it for yourself, as opposed to this kind of, this is the right way and you need to get it right. And that just shuts people down. Mm-hmm. So what I have found is freedom and joy in my own work as an actor. I didn't realize I was allowed to do these things, right? In a sense. And so that giving permission and allowing them to tap into their freedom of the fullest potential. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of.
Yeah. And why does an actor need a technique in the first place?
Oh, right. So this whole question, no one needs technique until they need it. Okay. And by that, I mean, I think it's Vanya says in Uncle Vanya, human beings, they're so funny. They think they're in control until they're not. We all think we have our shit together, and then we have one thought and we're in the middle of an anxiety attack. It's the same thing. If you could count on your talent over and over and over again, repeatability, longevity of a career that it's going to be there every time, great. You don't need a technique. I think I've met one or two people like that in my entire life. The rest of us need technique because it's, you need to show up at a professional level if you're working as a professional actor and deliver the mail, for God's sakes. You need to show up in rain, snow, wind, and deliver the mail, people. And technique allows you that. It allows you to grow. It gives you a place to explore in terms of how I access it. Here's what it really, at the end of the day, what technique does is it's a vehicle to allow you to access your own abilities repeatably over time. If you don't have that, you're kind of searching in the dark. How did I do that? That thing came up and yeah, you can get there that way. But if you have roadmaps and places to hang on to when you're climbing that, that mountain, that's what technique gives you. And I, in geeky preparation for your interview, I one of my favorite quotes about this, I do want to read this and get it right, is Picasso wrote this about technique. The more technique you have, the less you have to worry about it. The more technique there is, the less there is. And I totally agree with that. It's that because, as Chekhov himself writes, we learn the technique to forget it.
Yeah.
And that when that then becomes incorporated into your body on a subconscious level, this process of learning, we go from unconscious competence to conscious competence. Unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence to conscious competence, and we end up with unconscious competence. That's where you want to end up. That I'm unconscious of my competence, and technique gives you the way to move through those 4 stages. So. And that's, I would say, the definition of someone who's a professional as opposed to an amateur. And I love the word amateur because it means to love something, right? To do it because you love it. And then the more and more pressure, the higher the pressure mounts in the profession. You need to deliver under high pressure, and technique gives you that. So.
Yeah, and also I feel that these tools can bring you so much options to make your, I don't know, make your creation more complex and more multi-layered. And this is for me the exciting thing.
Absolutely, because what happens is people start repeating their performances over and over again, because that's the thing they've done before. Mm-hmm. So this, especially the work in the imaginary body and centers, it really gives you many ways to re-articulate yourself through the mask of the character. Yeah.
And you know, speaking about the tools, what are your favorite tools on the technique and why?
So I'm a basics guy. I believe in the fundamentals and just really sticking to them. I believe that they kind of set you free over time. And because I'm in a program where I'm training lots of young people, they want to know that there's a way. And so this may seem odd, but one of the things I think is the most profound for me is crossing the threshold. It's just the idea that I have a daily self, what Chekhov calls the lower ego, and I have what I call an artistic self. Chekhov calls it the higher ego. I don't use, in my own teaching, I don't use the word ego because it gets complicated.
Yeah.
Students start thinking, well, what is it, my ego? But they can relate to, this is my daily self, and then this is my artistic self. And to go from here to there, I need to incorporate an image, and I need to make a decision that I'm going to work in a different way. And I'm going to access a different part of myself. And I have found, especially more and more with the younger generation that's demanding safe spaces, and they're asking lots of different things of their teachers now, that this is a healthy way to delineate between this is my life and this is my artistic self. So it's a real basic thing, and people do it in lots of different ways. Like David Zinder has a way of doing it. He explains it in his book. I do it differently. Everyone does it differently. But you're giving the student this kind of power of, even if I'm just standing here, I can decide to access my artistic self. Mm-hmm. And that's a different relationship to my psyche, my imagination, my body, my emotional life, my thoughts. So I use that. Then, of course, listen, this psychological gesture is probably the pièce de résistance in the suite of techniques, of exercises and stuff to work on with students. I will say, though, one thing, and I do this a lot at MICHA, and I may have done it when we were in Croatia. Did we do the Palace of Beauty together?
Together, no, but I did, with Lisa.
You've done it
a few times.
Yeah, and I learned that from Mala, and when I got in, I was like, this is, and of course now I've spun it off and I do different, like the garden of your imagination and, the whatever. And so you can spin it in lots of different ways, but it's so wonderful and so simple. It's so elegant, but it allows you to both access your imagination and then who you are and really go places effortlessly. So.
Yeah, this is one of I don't know. It's a very strong exercise. I still remember rooms. I still remember, images a few years ago. It's amazing. And what is your dream regarding to the technique and its future, if you have one?
Well, listen, what Joanna decided to do in starting MICHA, and I'm sure you've covered this in some of your other interviews and other teachers who know more about it, the history than I do, is the technique, he didn't have a studio that was sustained over time. So the technique was, after the New York studio, Beatrice Strait, I think, was running that one, that she closed. And then, if I have that right, the perpetuation of the work. I mean, look at how much it's blossomed through Misha and MCE and now other, Lisa Dalton's organization. It's really worldwide now. I just hope that keeps growing, because I believe in the work so much and sharing it. And I think Jessica Cerullo is doing a great job of this with Misha now that she's taken over as artistic director, is staying relevant to the moment. Because, and especially in the United States with all that's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and in the wake of George Floyd, we have a huge responsibility in the actor training world to listen and respond to the moment and what our students, especially our BIPOC students, our Black, Indigenous, people of color, are asking us, and to respond to that, and not just keep doing things the way we were doing them before. So I hope that, and I believe that I think that Chekhov would embrace that. I think he would be for that, right? He would be, yes, we are here to help humanity. And when he talks about love on the meta sense, when you listen to the tapes that Malo put together, right? The DVDs, I'm pointing to them because they're right there in my library. They're up here. They're up here. Yours are over there. Yeah. But, he talks about this love that we've got to love our humanity. And I think there's a consciousness raising that's happening right now that's both very challenging as a teacher in the room, and our students are asking very difficult questions of us that we have to face. So I hope, my dream is that the work rises to this moment, and I believe it will.
Just to think that in the 80s, people, when I speak to Jorg, or they were, it wasn't allowed. This is crazy, and now it really is an amazing thing. And I have to say also that I met Jessica where I met you in Croatia, and she's such a remarkable woman that I don't know, her whole being is so, okay, you said she has it all. Also form and beauty, and she's such an innovator. I don't know, she got me, she's made a very big impression. She's amazing. Yeah.
She is.
Yeah.
She is all those things. Yeah.
What?
She is all those things.
Yeah.
And more. Yeah.
And I only met her for 1 week.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have, okay, this is a pitch, okay? You have 1 minute to convince someone that completed a drama school to start learning the Chekhov technique. What will you say?
Sure. Let me phrase it or respond to it this way. I would ask whomever, are you able to access your fullest potential with the least amount of interference, with the highest frequency and regularity possible? And if your answer is no, then you should train. I think one of the things of the joy of the Chekhov work is it really releases people's own idiosyncratic potential. And I work a lot with Chekhov, the Michael Chekhov work in relationship to sports psychology, because I came up as an athlete. And there's a definition of performance that I love. It's a meta definition, which is performance, all performance. Like you and I are giving a performance right now. So it could be this, it could be a first date, it could be a job interview, it could be a literal performance, it could be a speech you have to give. But performance equals potential minus interference. And so, in regards to the Chekhov technique, I believe it helps both increase our idiosyncratic potential while simultaneously reducing our interference. And the less we can interfere with ourselves, that would be like the Grotowski method and the via negativa, we're getting out of our own way, and some of Strasberg's work. The less we do that, the more we can access our potential. And so, yeah, to go to a program, like if you can do that, then you're good to go. Get your agent and get out there, start auditioning. But if not, you might want to look at a little more training, So
that was interesting. Actually, I didn't hear that. A potential minus interference.
Minus interference. Yeah, there's a lot of wonderful books, which I can send you later about that. But like mostly Timothy Galway's book, The Inner Game of Tennis, goes into this, because most of the interference that we have as human beings comes from our own stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves in the work. It's the dialogue in our head. Most interference for actors is mental. So when you have a relationship that I think the Chekhov work gets us in a positive and healthy dialogue with our own inner critic.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. What beauty do you see in being a teacher?
Well, a lot. Again, I would kind of pivot off the word teacher. You know, I understand. Yeah. But one of the things I kind of say when I start my classes is, listen, I'm just another actor in the room. The word sensei means someone who has gone before. Like, I'm a little older than you guys. I know some stuff. Let's explore together. And the beauty, I mean, for me, selfishly, the beauty of being a teacher of it is I was an actor, or am an actor, who prefers rehearsal to performance. I always have this joke. I don't need to perform. My parents loved me. But I love rehearsal. I love exploring, like, and of course I love performing too, but there's something about being in the constant process of inquiry and investigating. And I can tell you that I love acting now more than I ever did when I was performing all the time. And that's because I'm in the room. And the beauty of that, of being a teacher, is my students are teaching me a lot more about it than I'm probably teaching them. And I'm going, oh, wow, you know, I see how that works now. I didn't get that 20 years ago, but now I do. So you get to develop your relationship with this art form in perpetuity. It's just fantastic. So, yeah, that's right. I could talk about that forever because I just love teaching so much. But
yeah, this is
yeah.
Okay. And did you had a bad experience as a Chekhov teacher? And if so, what did you do to improve your situation?
Yeah, this is a tricky question because we're recording, right?
Yeah.
No, you can get it. This is how I'm going to answer it. Yes, I had one.
Yeah.
What did I do? I paid attention and I said to myself, don't do that. Meaning for myself as a teacher, you know, without getting into details. Sure. I mean, we're all in, and I can teach a bad class, hopefully not too often, but you know, you go in and you're like, well, that class was a, you know, so none of us are, you know, immune to it, but yeah. I just remember paying attention. I remember the looks on everybody in the room, their faces, and I remember thinking, yeah, I'm not going to ever do what they're doing right now. So anyway.
Okay. So use 1, 2, or 3 words. Acting is
imaginative, psychophysical storytelling.
Again? Can you repeat that, please?
Imaginative, psychophysical storytelling.
Psychophysical.
That's one word. No, dude, that's one word.
I'm just kidding. Wow, that was great. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a hard question because you can answer that a million different ways, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And whatever we will say, I mean, I remember my teachers in the studio, they were saying acting is one thing, listening. And then I started just, but no, but we need to. So.
Well, you're right. And we could put in a lot of 3 words there, right? A bunch of different, listening, responding, you know, yeah.
Yeah, but that was a beautiful definition. That was a beautiful definition. I mean,
well, it's funny because you sent the questions and I was like, oh gosh, I got to boil it down to, because if you ask me what's my definition of acting, that's a different question. But to boil it down to 3 words, it's always you need to be in your imagination. Even if you're on a reality TV show, you know, you need to be in your, maybe even more so than anything, you know, on a reality TV show. Reality. It's psychophysical. I mean, the great thing about the Chekhov technique is really it's centered at the intersection of the imagination, imagery, and the body. Yeah. You're always in your body, and you're always under imaginary circumstances.
Yeah.
And then what's in what purpose and for what? To tell a story. So, you know, yeah, that's what I'll say today. Might say something tomorrow.
And tell me about you have a lot of programs that you're running, and
too many.
Tell me about a few of them. What's the platforms, the options of, you know, classes or whatever? I'm very interested to know.
Right. So this is a great question, and we could probably do a whole hour just on this, but I'll give you the kind of high-level overview. I think if there's anything you have to do when you're running a program is pay attention to a couple things. Who are your teachers and who are your students, first of all, and how much time do you have, and what do they want to do when they come out? Because it's acting in the theater, it's so many different things. Do we want to work on psychological realism? Do we want to work on magical realism? Do we want to work on devising? Do we want to work, like, who's your constituents? Like, who are the constituents that you want to work with, and who are the people kind of guiding them, and what do they want to go do? What is everybody interested in? So for us at Long Beach, I run a large undergraduate actor training program where, for the most part, because we're in Los Angeles, most of our students are going to go into, if they stay in the business, they're going to go into the business here. So we do a couple things. So in the BA, we kind of have a very organized kind of sequential training program that they move through. It's called a performance major. But their BA, it's a liberal arts degree, so we're not expecting them to go out and work professionally, as opposed to a BFA, the Bachelor of Fine Arts, which they are. So that BFA is more rigorous. It's got more contact hours in terms of what they're training. And the expectation is that they will be able to stand on their own in the industry on day one upon graduation. And then the MFA program we have is an MFA in acting, but it's really an MFA in actor training. It's the pedagogy of performance. So we work with professional actors who have been out for 10, 20, 30, 40 years in some cases, who don't have an MFA, but they come back and they want to be in the classroom again and learn how to teach either movement or voice and speech or acting or, clown or something like that. So those are kind of the programs. And on the undergraduate level, it's pretty simple. Our first year is a kind of a relationship to the authentic self. It's grounded in Stanislavski's work for the most part, Uta Hagen specifically. In the second year, they learn to get their attention off themselves. They work on the Meisner technique. So most of their work is Meisner. I pick them up in their junior year, and I kind of refine what the doing is. If all acting is doing, I refine it in terms of playing action. And then all filtered throughout, we have a lot of teachers teaching Michael Chekhov. In the third year, I get them and we work on it very specifically in terms of transforming him as character or in the role. So earlier in their freshman and sophomore year, they have it, but in relationship to like a warm up and getting into their bodies and learning to cross the threshold, and we're learning to incorporate imagery and get in touch with themselves. And then we in the third and fourth year begin to go, okay, how do we apply that now? So yeah, I mean, I could talk for a long time about that, but then, and then in LA, I pop into all these different studios and I'm working with professionals that get up in front of their completely off book. I'm working in my other friend's studio. These are people that are on TV. They're professionals. They know how to act, but they don't know the Chekhov work. So I might give them like, can you change just the quality of a movement? Or can you add a center? Or can you use imaginary body? Or can we take a moment and just access atmosphere of the scene? So without trying to teach them the technique, when working with them in scene study, you can make offers to them that they can then take as their professionals. So they don't need to be, have a structure so much because they're already professionals. So really it means just staying adaptive and reactive to the room you're in as a teacher and knowing what room you're in, right?
Yeah. And a few questions from that.
Yeah.
You took the Chekhov technique and I don't know, did you work with it? I saw that you did a workshop with MCE actually in Hamburg.
Yeah, with Uli.
Yeah, with Uli in front of a camera, acting in front of a camera.
Right.
Do you have special, applications with the Chekhov technique with it?
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to use a lot of that this fall because we're all in this format this fall. So whether you like it or not, de facto, every acting class now is an acting for the camera class. Yes. So I think, and this is why Maya Rika Makela, who also has a studio here in Los Angeles, she's an amazing teacher of the work and she just exudes it and she's amazing. She and I both, in our teaching out here, find that it's readily accessible to the camera. and it's incredibly helpful. And we both coach a lot of actors. We coach like Zoom coach like this, because you can put all the imagery in the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And camera work is very simple. It's exterior, master shot, two shot, over the shoulder, close up. So we're always headed to the close up, basically. And so when they get into the close up, it really is the story in the eyes. So then you can take all the centers work, the image work, the imaginary body, personal atmosphere, and it's great for the camera because it's all right here. And so it's fun. And it's totally, you can tell I get excited about it. It's really, yeah.
And also, if you can talk, say a few words about the program that you talked about earlier with the group of teachers.
Yes.
What is it exactly?
So this is the National Alliance of Acting Teachers. We're based in the United States, but we're coming more and more international. In fact, we're thinking about dropping the national part and just becoming the Alliance of Acting Teachers because we have so many international teachers now. It started with the teacher development program at a place called the Actors Center in New York City. And it was started by J. Michael Miller, who ran the Actors Center, and some teachers there, Lloyd Richards, who taught at Yale for many years and NYU, Ron Van Loo, Earl Gister, Catherine Fitzmaurice. And Michael Miller realized back in the mid-90s that a lot of these teachers and what they teach, they're getting older, and we need to pass this on. Not dissimilar to what Joanna realized with the Chekhov work when she started Misha, that we really need to pass this work on to the next generation. So Michael ran that program for many years. And in 2014, he asked me and Amy Hertzberg to take it over. And we did. And out of the alumni of that program, which is now over 300 people, we are a consortium of acting teachers. Right before this meeting with you, I had my weekly Zoom meeting with acting teachers from all over the United States and internationally. And we're just helping each other. We have a website called actingteachers.org. And we offer 2 teacher development programs each year, or each 2 weeks. We did them online this summer. We didn't know if they were going to work. They worked. It's never as good as being in the room, right? But and so we're a resource. We have a journal called Parados, dedicated to actor training, issues of actor training. We ran a couple forums online with some teachers this summer, and people tuned in. So we're doing a lot. And it's great because it's a community. And at the end of the day, that's why we're all in this, right? Is to be together. And we have so yeah, that's what that is basically.
Okay. And can you tell me about a student of yours that you remember very well that touched you for some reason?
Gosh, this is the hard one because there's so many. I think back now, teaching 20 years, there's so many beautiful moments and so many beautiful students. I think there's moments when a student has a discovery, where they realize and the penny drops, and you see it both happen in their body and you see them realize it. And they kind of come to life in a way, just maybe a little bit more than they had before. Mm-hmm. And you go, ah. And so there's a wonderful actress by the name of Mackenzie Meehan. She was my student for 4 years, and then she went to study with Joanna Merlin at NYU, and she's now on the show Bull on CBS. But she had a moment where she had a discovery like that, where she was like, oh, I get it. The degree to which I make myself available to my scene partner is the degree to which I can play action onto them. And she just lit up, you know? And I remember as a young teacher, because she was at the beginning of my career, going, oh, wow, that worked, you know? You know, and she's stayed one of my dear friends over the years. And that's kind of a part of teaching that I don't think I realized. And actually, I get a little emotional, is how many people in your life you get to stay friends with. I mean, it's just your students become your friends later, and it's just the most beautiful thing. So yeah, I would say Mackenzie, but there's so many. This is not a fair question.
Sorry. So let's do a fair question. I don't know if you remember, when we were in Croatia. So you told me it was part of a long conversation, but you told me if you want, this is a bonus question. If you want ball games, I can teach you 1,000 ball games. Do you remember saying this to me or
Had
something?
we been drinking before that?
No, but we talked about how to, to work with the technique with balls, with ball toss, and you
Yeah.
told me that you have tons of ball games. Can you teach us one?
Well, it's interesting, right? So on Zoom, I'm actually challenged with this now. Like how, so you know how you would normally toss a ball, right? So what do you do in Zoom? So we'll do a little thing right here. Do you have some objects that are behind like, that I can't see that are like on the other side of your screen right now?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I'm going to show you this. Yeah.
Mhm.
And and at a certain point, you're going to be like, wow, Hugh, those AirPods look pretty good. You might ask me for them. And then I'll pass it through the camera and through my camera, and then you'll pull out from your camera an object on the other side of your screen, which won't be this, but it'll be a surprise for me because I won't have any idea what that object is.
Hmm. Okay.
So you can ask me, these are looking pretty good, aren't they?
Okay. Yeah, Hugh, those AirPods looks really good. Can
Yeah,
I,
they do.
can I,
Yeah?
yeah?
Yeah. Here. But you gotta pull it out of your camera. Where's your camera? Yeah. Yeah, go up, up. Yeah. So so you get the students to go like this. So they go, and then you pull it like,
Oh, okay. I got it.
So, I mean, this is the thing about Zoom right now is we have to be inventive. I mean, how are we going to toss a ball? I mean, I can't be like, so, but no, I just finished writing my own book that's coming out next year.
Really?
Yeah. And I've got a whole section on ball tossing. So, and different versions.
So I knew what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when are you planning to release it?
So it's a book called Acting Action, a primer on playing action for actors. And it's basically, the fundamentals of how you play action in a scene. And it's what I kind of feel when I'm working with, even after they've been in drama school for 3 years, they can't play an action all the way through their scene still. So it's like, well, I should write a book on and I had some amazing teachers in that regard, Lloyd Richards and Earl Gister and Ron Van Loo, who taught the scene study classes very specifically. So I tried to kind of capture that approach to playing action in the book. So it's called Acting Action. Yeah.
And do you know when will it be available?
Yeah, actually, the final manuscript's going in tomorrow, which is part of why, our own interview got a little delayed because I was just working on it. But it should be out, in January or February. So I'll let you know. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So
I don't know if now I need to say congratulations, but congratulations. Not yet. I don't know.
We're almost there.
Almost there. Okay. Last question.
Yeah.
Is the technique helping you in your everyday life? And if so, can you give some examples?
Sure. Yes. This is where I think, in Bali, if I'm not mistaken, the word for art is the same word as life. So there's no difference between life and art. And I feel that just if you think about the four brothers, just moving through your day, like I at the beginning of this summer, actually at the beginning of the pandemic, I said to myself, I'm responsible for all these students and all these programs and stuff. And Hugh, to get through this, I need to work with the feeling of ease. So I gave myself the prompt to spend the rest of 2020 trying to breathe with the feeling of ease, trying to listen with the feeling of ease. So I use it in a conscious way, that way, all the time. But I also feel, just again on a subconscious level, after you practice something enough, it becomes a part of you. And so, you know, I'm conscious when I'm not really receiving someone, or I'm not really radiating out to them. So it both is a conscious and a subconscious thing. But I also think one of the kind of mantras that Chekhov has and has written about is, you can, with the feeling of beauty, right? You can find it and do it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything can become a little piece of art if we decide it is. And so that kind of reminder is always, even just now, right? Just us reminding ourselves is that I can tell our relationship over the screen, even though we're thousands of miles away, changed just slightly, but importantly. And yeah.
Wow. I want to thank you. I'm grateful for this conversation, because I was curious, and I felt like I felt like a groupie at first. I need to I wanted very much to talk to you after this week that we've been through. It was 2 years ago.
Yes, it was.
And
Yeah.
it stayed with me, and yeah, I want to thank you for this conversation. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk with you, to share some more time together, and to share our passion for this amazing work together. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope we will meet again soon in person.
Yeah, me too. Let's really pray for that.